Let's call our Warrant Committee meeting to order. Today is January 30th. It is 7 o'clock. And this meeting is being recorded. It'll be made available later on the website. So we have a full agenda tonight. Even though this says comments from the town moderator, he's not coming. He came to the last meeting. So you can see we'll go through some minutes and some administrative things. We have a lot of department heads here. Thank you for coming, and they're going to present their department budgets. We have some reserve fund transfers, and we want to save some time for the new elementary school building discussion that it started at our last meeting. And talk about the budget guidance, and then review the updates to the warrant article listing and get any informational updates. So with that, did everybody have a chance to review the minutes of January 16th?
Yeah.
Okay. I know, Peter, you had some very minor comments. They're very minor.
Yeah.
So I entertain a motion to approve those subject to those minor edits.
Move to approve the minutes of the last Warrant Committee meeting, subject to a couple minor edits I submitted.
Okay, second.
Second.
Okay. So we're all here, so we can just do a vote here. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right. The next item is our calendar. And this might take a little bit. I want to share with you the changes that happened. There were a number of different changes that we added some meetings, changed the meetings. Make sure everyone's aware of it. Everything that's highlighted in yellow has changed. So the first one is the date stayed the same. February 27th is still at the Public Safety Building, but we are going to have our MBTA zoning brief on that day. Maria will come and do that for us. And then the next meeting is, I believe the date changed on this one. It's now March 12th, which is a Tuesday. There was a conflict with the select board. So we changed our meeting to the 12th. And the next meeting is a week later on the 19th. I can't remember if that date changed or not. I don't think it did, but it must have changed because I changed I highlighted it yellow. So maybe what changed is at the Public Safety Building. That might have what changed. It's now at the Public Safety Building. And then we've added two new meetings. So I think the 19th might have been if we need it meeting, but we now know we're going to need it. There's two meetings in April. The first one is April 2nd, and that is our public hearing. And that is going to be in this room. It's going to start right after the select board's meeting. The select board will meet at 6. And then there'll be a hard stop and we will have the public hearing. We'll just switch places. They're going to stay for the public hearing. And so that's a 7:30 start time. And then on the 9th, we have a meeting which will just be dedicated to the MBTA zoning warrant article. The planning board has 2 public hearings, and the last one is April 1st. So they won't have finalized the actual warrant until then. So we couldn't deal with that on the 2nd. So we're going to dedicate the 9th to that meeting. And then on the 10th, that's just a reminder that the warrant has to go to the printer on that day. There's not a meeting that day. And then our town meeting is on the 6th. So So we've got a lot to get through in the next couple months, and 3 months, I guess. But it's basically 2 meetings a month is kind of what we're looking at. Any questions on that? And I've reordered the meeting assignments so that you know, to put them in the order of the new meetings that we've added. The questions? Okay. Okay. So thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. We're going to continue our discussion of the department budgets from last week. And just a reminder that we appreciate you being here, but we would also like to leave at 9. So we want to try to be keep it brief and to the point and make your points, but we'll also, make sure we have questions and address those. But so we're, I think the goal was around 10 minutes, but some will go over, some will go under. So we'll just play it by ear and see how it goes. And the first one is, so the order, I guess that's been decided is Marion will go first, then Katie, then Pam, Kathy, Dana, Andrew, and then Christine is left. Okay. Yeah. So
People did read them.
so everybody, we're going to assume, for the department heads, assume that your respective department that is in this book, we've all read, we have the background on it, we understand it. We still might ask questions, but and then we also have the actual 25 budget, the other spreadsheet that Frank has sent out with the actual numbers on it. So we have that too. So, all right, Marion, come on up.
Hi,
Hello.
so do you want me to speak first?
Did anybody have Marion in terms
I
of?
did.
You did, okay.
Yeah.
Do you wanna introduce the department and?
Yeah, so, Mary and I met, I think a week ago.
Mhm.
And it was really enjoyable. Got to learn a lot about the town clerk and, mostly, I think the variation that she, experiences depending on the type of election we have per year, given that one of their main expenses is election related costs. But that it's quite difficult to predict in actuality with the, vote by mail, yep. So anyway, but it was a very enjoyable time and I'll let her talk about her budget.
So, for 2025, I'm not asking for anything other than for an added cost to the office supplies. Basically, that is because the toner for the printers that are downstairs, which actually come from the state, each one of them is $350 for the toner. And depending upon the elections that I have and the amount that I'm printing, that blows my whole office supply budget right there. So, and then the other thing that I was asking for was an additional $250 to be added to dog licensing. Lots of doggies in Medfield. I'm sure you've all heard at some point, but anyway, we're averaging about 2,000 dogs at this point. So
Wow.
that budget hasn't increased since the flux of puppies from the COVID, and prior to that, it's just progressively gone up. But to Emily's point, what we were discussing was, it's a little bit difficult for me to determine election costs in a year such as 2024. We have the primary coming up, as you all know. We have a local town election. Then there's the annual town meeting. Then that's this year, and then we're shifting in for the primary and the general the presidential election in November. So I do have the ability to haggle back with the state to fight to get money back, which I've done ever since I came into the town clerk position. And it tends to be like the earlier in the pool, the more money you get. So I tend to jump in that pool very early and to try and recoup some of those costs back from the state. But it's a little bit difficult. What I was discussing with Emily is, for example, right now, I just actually counted before I came up here. I've gotten 822 vote by mail postcards within a week. So is that all I'm gonna get? Am I gonna get 5,000 more between now and February 27th? It's very difficult for me to know. Every one of those ballots that I mail out is 97 cents. So, you know, if I have 800, it's $800. If I have 5,000, it's 5,000, it's that type of thing. So it's very difficult to know that. Thankfully, last week at the select board meeting, in terms of the financial piece of it, the select board did opt out of us having to do early voting for our local election. Because of those postcards that we get in the mail when somebody checks off all elections, the law was a little bit ambiguous about whether that includes our local or not. So I had asked the select board to vote to opt us out of that because it would just be another expense added to the town, and I really wouldn't be able to fight for that one with the state. So that's what we were discussing, that it's a little, sometimes I don't have a crystal ball to tell you what I'm gonna get hit with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the 6,500 increase that you're asking for, the town
Right.
election expense, is that what that?
Oh, no, I'm not asking for it. Where are you? 6,500 for the 2025? Is that where you're?
No, the increase. 17,500, is that am I looking at the right thing?
Yeah, but I don't think that's right.
I don't think that, are we talking about fiscal year 2025 budget? Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah,
From here we
But it's
go.
also lower than what it was in 23, so.
Yeah.
That's,
Oh, that's the change from 2024.
Right.
I see where you're going. Okay, yes,
Yeah, 24, the budget
Yes.
was 11, you're asking for 17,500, so the 6,500.
right.
And I think like Peter pointed out, it's less than what was actually incurred in 23. Are you comfortable with this?
I'm comfortable with it,
Okay.
but again, it's all kind of, it's based on the numbers that I had at the
Yeah,
time. You
okay.
know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Okay.
but so it looks like it might be offset in part by the data processing.
right, so that was the other thing, the way that this budget is laid out, Tracy and I, who's the assistant town clerk, kind of went through that we wanted to kind of shift things around. So data processing, we wanted that to be added to election expenses. In other words, the way that a lot of these were titled was kind of redundant. So we were asking that 5,000, like the data processing elections, to be added to actually election expenses, because it's all kind of the
Oh,
same
okay.
thing. Do you see what I mean?
Okay.
That's why when you said 6,500, I'm going, wait a minute, I don't
Okay,
think I
okay.
did that. We're just kind of moving
So
puzzle.
it's really
pieces around.
5,000 plus the.
Yeah.
Right,
It's 1,500 plus the 5,000, okay.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay,
Because like the ballot printing
makes
for
more
our
sense.
elections is essentially only the ballots that I order for our town elections.
yeah, okay, okay, good.
So,
Any other questions for Marion on the town clerk budget? Well, you're gonna have a busy year.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know, but bring it on, I'm ready, let's go. But, no,
And
it's gonna be good.
The new systems work well with the tablets and.
It's great. I just love them. The machines are new. One was that, we got that grant in 2021, maybe, I forget. With the poll pads, you see them when we check in.
Yeah,
We actually just got a new Dropbox that I haven't gotten installed yet. That was through another grant, with Frank and Christine, because there were some questions about security. I'm sure you've all heard on the news about mail postage boxes, people getting crazy with those, so we had to update that. And, but no, the equipment is fantastic, and our group is great. Our
Great.
election workers are great, so no, I'm looking forward to getting busy.
well, thank you for everything you do,
Good.
Oh,
town,
thank
I
you.
appreciate it. All right,
Am I all set?
unless there's any other questions, I think that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Katie and Park and Rec and Mel. You guys can come up here, sit at the table. Jill, do you want to introduce the department?
So Katie, Mel and I met a couple of times, the past couple of weeks, to go through the budget, and thanks for preparing a summary, Katie. There's some really good, data information here. So,
Let me let's see if I can show that presentation. Just give me a second here. Hmm. Okay, here we go.
great. So for the most part, the budget's level funded. There's a little bit there for salaries, which I'm sure we will get into. We did take a look at our, I think it was in November, we had our capital expenditure meeting, to review that, but I think some of that's included in the summary, so I'll turn it over to you there.
Okay, well, thank you. It feels a lot better being here after a year, because last time was 3 weeks, and I was like, good luck. So we're excited. We've had a really busy year as far as money and policies and procedures. Just a couple of recaps. There's the summary, there's this whole packet of fun things, but I just wanted to take the opportunity to highlight a couple of things. One is we have the budget increase for our Park and Rec salaries, because we're hoping to have the assistant director position start halfway through the fiscal year in January FY 25 or for January 2025. Everything else for the operations is staying the same. When it comes to just operating overall, the only difference will be is our salary lines. And we're working with that. As most of some things that do go over budget, we have the revolving account, so we supplement off the revolving. The commission and I, we worked on a refund policy that makes sense for us, but also from an accounting standpoint, we are getting rid of our credits on accounts. It's just really difficult from an accounting standpoint, but also as a rec standpoint, when people withdraw from programming, having credits for different fiscal years sit on accounts. So we're coming up with a policy that we no longer do credits on accounts. It would just be when they are coming out of a program that they'll be refunded up to a certain percent. We have a whole criteria of when they withdraw and how much they would get back. That's pretty much it for the operating, and then the lovely revolving account. So something that we have discussed as a commission and they voted in January that they're requesting to change our current revolving account from the 53D to a 53.5 for FY 25. On the second page, revolving account, we currently have around 390,000. Items below are what we usually pull out of revolving. This year we've spent a lot of money on professional development. That is something that we don't get supplemented from operating, so we do pivot to the revolving fund for that. Capital projects in the past, you can see for FY 23 and 24. FY 25 is shaping up to be a little bit difficult. So we just found out about 2 weeks ago that the state cut the funding for $100,000 earmark by $50,000. And so that money for us was being allocated for the Hinckley tennis courts project. So now we're going to pivot to going back to capital because we were supplementing the rest of the cost of the project. So the projects coming in we haven't done an RFP yet, for $150,000 to $165,000. So we were gonna come up with the rest of the money out of the revolving account, but we simply don't have enough now because it's an extra $50,000.
This is the Metacomet
Yeah.
tennis court.
So the Metacomet tennis court project. The other two projects, and it's kind of a little bit different. So we have the Hinckley paving project with the new playground coming in. We really want that parking lot to be ADA accessible. If you've been down to Hinckley, it's a stone dust. Right now, it's not even paved. So unfortunately, sometime this spring and summer, we had some strollers getting stuck and you go down there are some craters down there. One big thing to note is that we're working, reallocating funds. So we have identified, the commission and I, that we have some articles that are in past that we no longer need as far as what they were originally allocated for. Because what we wanted to do is with the commission and I is really make McCarthy and Hinckley a priority, because we have some ADA issues, but also just if you go down to also McCarthy, the paving has been overlooked. DPW has been great in the past and done patchwork. They've also done a substantial amount leading up to the gate, but once you get past that gate, if you go down there, you'll see it's in rough shape. So that's where we're at. And then I think the one big thing for us is I like to be transparent about our deficits. So we currently right now, fields and town properties, we're at a deficit of $35,530. This money gets taken out of the revolving account, as well as Hinkley Pond. So in Massachusetts and recreation, it is very hard for a waterway to make a profit. This is not uncommon. However, for us, Hinkley Pond is not a destination spot. So we're trying to highlight it. We have putting money to the bathhouse as well as getting a working shower. It was vandalized last year, so we did get it repainted, so that can take out of the money out of our account that we had. But simply lifeguard payroll is going up. We have to stay to a standards of Massachusetts state law and per beta load of swimming. So we're looking at an average of $45,000 to $55,000 a year just in payroll alone at Hinkley Pond. So that is taken out of the revolving account. And then the third.
Can I, but before you go on, can I ask you a question on the, that McCarthy paving project, the
Yep.
215?
Yep.
That, like, that's a 26 ask? Is
So
that-
what we did was we were in talks with Christine and Frank about potentially merging them together, because when we got original quotes, they said if you pair them together, you potentially could get a discount because you're doing the projects
Yeah.
together. So what the commissioner and I were identifying is, would we have enough? So originally, when we put out FY 25, we were looking at what's currently in the revolving account. We wouldn't, but then when we looked at the past articles, as well as what we would have, we would come pretty close to being able to afford both of them at the same time.
Oh.
But that's where we're at with the process. Frank and I met with Mo to talk about, they have a paving. Can you talk about
So the funding for that, I guess the only other question is, the funding for that is, you know, because the capital budgeting process is
Yeah.
through, we're complete that. So
Yeah.
this, you're saying the funding for this is gonna come from another source
Mhm.
of money that's been appropriated
Yes,
that hasn't been spent.
right.
Is that, okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
So
that-
that point of process, so that will still need to go back to the capital budget committee for them to approve the
Mm.
county, so.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
So that's the allocation of $138,005 would be reallocated from
Okay.
past that we have not spent.
okay. And I'm sorry, I just have one more question. I figure it's easy to ask as you go through this.
Yeah.
You talk about department deficits, the two deficits here,
Mhm.
just so I understand.
Yeah.
The revolver's not in a deficit overall.
No, no.
This, so you've managed to make this up somehow
Yeah.
within the revolver?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Got it. All right, sorry.
No, and that's pretty much it. So we're forecasting, on the last page, I think it's just looking at, the other thing to note. So what I've done, to change the way that we bring in our revenue and our money is we host registration dates. So in the past, it's always been like ongoing. So what we're trying to do is identify at the revolving account at 2 points of the year where our baseline is. So we're changing registration dates. What we've done, and we think it also helps our families, is we come up with these program guides. So what happens is we take registration at different times. So on the last page, you'll see the bar graph, and they go, why in last year compared to this year, we're gonna be taking money in differently. So you'll see some months, if you look at like July, like why did we take so much in previous years? Because we would used to take registration money for summer camp, like the day before summer camp. And so some people would not pay their balance. So what we did was we came up with a refund policy, as well as our summer camp policy, that it is such high demand that they have to pay. They used to have a $50 deposit, and then they would pay whenever they could. So what the commission, that's not financially responsible. So what we have done is they have to pay half up front and then half by May 1st. And if any family needs to have a payment plan, we're willing to work with them because we do understand it's a lot, especially if you have multiple children, it becomes expensive. So we work with families, but you'll see that we just take in money at different times of the year.
And then this is sorry, I wasn't advancing the slides here. So this is the like that, okay, everybody has, I can't get that to turn, I guess, but hidden. The revolver roll forward is right here, basically. This, maybe you could talk about this. Anything you want to add about this roll forward or?
Yeah, so right now, this account, we cannot carry over into the next fiscal year more than $10,000 because that's the way the 53D is operated. So what you'll see is, and I'm sorry to go back, but on the first page, you'll see in FY 21 and 22, there was no turn back to the town. In FY 23, we turned back $68,293.39. That's because a lot of park and rec revenue is brought in before the end of the fiscal year. So if you think about it, we take in our camp registration, February, March, April, May. So that's revenue unearned. So then we have to work with town accountant, and Ingrid has been amazing, is come up with all those receipts to be able to carry that balance over. But this year we had the surplus of the $68,000, which was turned back to the town. That previously has not been done, and then.
Now that in the capital, that's covered though in the capital budget, right? The 68,000, that's gonna go for.
It was earmarked in free cash to go to our capital.
Yeah.
So that might-
Oh, free cash, I was in
Yeah,
free cash, yeah. It was in free cash, so we've kind of
Yeah.
turned that back to the department.
Yeah, so that 68,000 is also part of the paving project.
Okay,
And then we'll have to get in debt to it, but then, the 53D, so that's why we have to turn the money back in, because that's the way that the state has it.
I mean, we were just planning on covering the budget
Yeah,
tonight.
yeah.
And we'll have you back to talk about the article. There is just so you know, there's been an article added to create a departmental revolving account, and we'll go through that with them at another date, but.
And the last thing is just we've seen an increase of participation. We've added more programming, which obviously creates more revenue. But our biggest goal is to keep these programs and events as affordable as possible. But you'll see in 2022 and 2023, we had a little bit of a jump. If you look in the book, though, 2022, there was, this is the correct number, so we did make a little bit more money for 2023. And you'll see that our participation was up by 1,000 registrations. So in 1 year, we went up 1,000. We're projecting.
That looks like a record. Is that a record?
I hope.
At least on the schedule it is.
Feels like
Going back to
it's a record.
2020, maybe 2018, 2019 might have been pre-COVID. That might have, yeah. Okay. It's close to $1 million of revenue. It's a big program. 5,500 people. A lot of. All right, any questions for Katie and Mel? No, did a good job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate everything you're doing.
Yeah,
Did an
wrote-
important
wrote this,
program.
but that's impressive.
Yeah,
5,500.
You asked for more last year, so. I remember.
Not bad for a year on the gym.
A year a week.
Thanks again. Okay, so next, oops, what happened? Did I use it? No, no. Did I log out of it?
I see it upside.
No, but I need to share. Frank, I might need your help here. I think I might have done something wrong here. Sorry. Do I need to join the meeting again?
Seems like you're, there's a lesson.
No, oh, I just can't present though. How do I get to the? It's over here, over here. Okay, share screen. This one, sorry. See? Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, Pam, you're next. Deb, did you have Pam? Or who had Pam?
I had Deb.
Deb,
Deb had me.
got it.
Yes.
What a
This is
team.
Pam Gardner,
Yes,
welcome.
we discovered I was an entry level budget because I keep getting a new pay member every time,
We had a very nice discussion. I got into the weeds a little bit on the trusts that fund some of this, and then I had to pull myself back out of the weeds. Not a huge amount of change here at all. It's a little bit with salary and longevity and things like that, but you can speak to it much better than I, so, yeah.
I did bring some updated statistics. Do you guys have FY 23 in the budget? I wasn't sure if it stopped at FY 22 or if I had.
It's just kind of clear. Let me just check here. I think so, yeah, I think we have.
Okay, all right. then-
Yeah, we have 23 actual, yeah.
Okay, so I have the completed fiscal year. 23.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. So, yeah, looking at the budget, not a lot changing, is why I mentioned those. I would like to note the information technology line that is down 2.95%. That's down 2.95%. That's we're switching over to a new computer system that I'm anticipating will help us with costs, and we're going to be paying for that out of our state aid account. And that comes in. So our biggest increase was our biggest ask is for library materials. So part of the library's participation in the state aid program requires us to spend 16% of the budget on library materials. This is everything that gets checked out. It doesn't count the actual barcodes that check the materials out, but the any materials that get checked out of the library, any e-content you're checking out online would fall under the library materials budget line. So that's about $5,500 over the 16% that I'm currently asking for. However, I have to count in anticipated COLA, merit, and then the reclassification study. So that will all, we have to spend 16% of our total allotted money from the town on library materials. So we were we're right on the line for this year. So it helps to have a little bit of wiggle room, because that's my analogy in my head is a very large plane on a very short runway. So this gives me just a little bit of extra runway, because these also, it's a lot of very small purchases. These are $5 and $6 board books, $10 and $12 picture books. It's not, so it's just, but it's the quantity of those. So I've gotten pretty good at getting us in that over the 16%, but under the budget request. But it helps to have a little bit of wiggle room. And in addition, I don't normally talk about the actual content that we spend on materials in these meetings. However, our print materials have increased slightly and our discount on print materials has decreased slightly. But we do still pay a lot less than the list price on print materials. So like when you open up the book jacket and the price is listed up there, we spend on average a 44% discount on physical print materials. However, e-content, which you'll see increased a lot during the pandemic and has only decreased a little since the pandemic, it's not a one-to-one because these are licenses, but so an ebook on Amazon costs about $10 to $15 for you to purchase a license for your individual use. It costs us like $60 to $80 for one copy, one user license, or it's slightly less, $50 to $60 for, it's called a metered access, but we get the license for a limited number of time or a limited number of checkouts. So we're basically, like we did a bad job 15 years ago banding together our buying power when e-content comes out, and now we're seeing the fiscal. So, you can speak to your legislator. It's on the agenda again this year. We're spending, Medfield is spending in the Minuteman Library Network, which is the library network that we're a part of. We're spending $1.63 per capita, and the average is $2.41. So we're low, and because that's a shared group, we're kind of not pulling our weight in that group, which is neither here nor there. But I'm asking for this money because of the 16%, which is generally what I rely on, but we actually really do need it. We're not going to struggle to spend this. We're struggling now, not spending it, and there's longer wait times on e-content. I think it's an average of like 45 days for like each item.
Yeah. I had a question.
Yes.
When we looked at the trust accounts for the town,
Yeah.
I think there were a few at the library that were overseen by your trustees.
Yes.
The board, the question was, do they see the detail activity, and do you give them reports, and do they review it?
Yes.
Okay.
So for the general gift account, which is mostly funded by, if you wrote a check to the library right now, that's where I would put it. But it's mostly, I would tell you should probably write that to the Friends of the Library because they're our fundraising arm. And so most of the money comes from the Friends of the Library. And so they do annual gifts, and that funds all of our library events, which you'll see in my statistics that's listed as library programs. So the operating budget pays for staffing for those library events, but everything else, like all of the materials, all of the marketing stuff, that comes from the Friends account, the general gift account. So that I will make day-to-day purchases on, because that's like a lot of little purchases without approval from the trustees, but we do at our monthly meetings. I do provide them with a report.
It's an accounting.
Broken down by, I've split up that budget into several. We have 5 different internal budgets. So it's split up into that. And then they look at that every month, and everything else. And revolving is also another one that I will spend, and then they'll review it. Everything else gets voted on.
Yeah.
So before I make the purchase, I will bring it to the library trustees, and then they will vote to approve it.
Okay, great. That's good. That's helpful. I didn't understand that. That was good. I was looking at your trends. It's going in the right direction.
No kidding. And so that's FY23, I think. So calendar 2023, I think is still gonna look, we're gonna still be impacted a little bit by pre-pandemic, but for sure, I think 2024, I'm really confident with where we're at trend-wise in 2024. And you'll see our borrowing total has like fully rebounded.
Hmm.
We're just not getting as many, we hadn't gotten as many people on the line. But I think we're pretty much back to where we were.
Good. Okay,
Just one question on the budget sheet. I think that the change from 24 cell is, I don't think the bottom number's right. It's actually favorable in your favor. I don't, the 8% increase is not, I don't think that's the right number. I think it's about 1% increase, so.
Yes, that is correct. It is
it doesn't add up to 60.
No, it adds up to about $12,000
Okay.
a year over year, which is about 1.5%.
take it. No.
Yeah, it's much more favorable of a story.
I
So
think that might just be an error in the spreadsheet.
yeah, I think it's just a spreadsheet error.
You know what? I have my own spreadsheet.
Okay, all right. Great.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's right.
Oh, yeah, that's much better.
This one has one.
Oh, the one that I think Frank sent out.
The one that's been sent out today.
No, the other one. Yeah, this one? Yeah, okay. It's the detailed department spreadsheet
Yeah.
that has the wrong percentage on it. Yeah, good catch. I saw it too. Any other questions? Or Pam? You all set with any questions for
No,
Pam?
it's good.
Thank you very much.
No,
We really appreciate
Thank you.
everything you
Thanks
do.
for coming in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have Dana. Dana Hinthorn. The Inspections Department.
Yes.
Welcome.
Well, thank you.
I don't know who has, did you have this, Deb? Okay.
So we talked about this and, Dana was very helpful in forthcoming information, helping understand what's going on here. And it looks like the two biggest changes are the utility / telephone and mileage. And I think you can go into detail better than I, but these are attributed to many more people having, inspection requirements for additional projects that started during COVID and are continuing, it sounds like, and then giving everybody their own cell phone and
Well, yeah, the building department recently received a new phone for the local inspector, my deputy commissioner. So he would not have to use his personal phone. So just in case there's any type of issue that arose, his personal phone was not part of that issue. And then as far as everything else, the inspections have increased. And on the mileage, which is what we're asking for, is the inspections have increased, so they do their own, they use their own vehicles. So this was quite a bit.
And we don't see it here in this budget, but my understanding is you increased the fees for the inspections recently, the select board approved that. Or did they? No, okay.
The fees have been increased.
They haven't changed in a while? Okay. Have you looked at that to see whether they should?
Well, sorry, we looked at it, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, and the fees far exceed the cost of the department. So we
Okay.
want to make sure that your fees stay in line when you're not overcharging to be a profit center, depending on the cost of the department. We're always always open to looking at them again, but the select board set the fees and they were not in favor of changing them. I think it was about 3 years ago.
Okay.
Charge a lot and treat it as a profit center, or charge more and treat it as a profit center.
Some of my colleagues may take that approach.
Are you proposing lowering them or?
No.
That's my budget.
I suggest going up. And that would give you some optional flexibility for other things, which are going up as well. But.
like gas and mileage.
Gas and mileage, whatever else, not just inspections, but maybe in other DPW or other places like that.
Did they benchmark us against other towns, the actual fee that's getting charged? Okay. Okay,
Yeah, because in previous towns that I've worked in, where we have done that type of comparison, we have bounced it around to other towns just to make sure that you're not too low or, you know,
Yeah.
on site where
Yeah.
nobody wants to.
Would you like to be in a good midpoint?
yeah, I just realized that you're new to the town and we, maybe you should tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I've been in inspections for a little over, about 4 years now. Prior to that, I was a contractor. We had my own business. I was in business for 15 years. I've been in construction for over 40 years. It just, you know, it seems like the right time to come to the other side of the aisle, if you will.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's not so fun out there.
Yeah.
To be quite frank.
And when the hospital, if it gets going, you'll have help with an outside contractor.
Yeah.
Dedicated to that initiative, yeah.
Yeah, and I also have, my predecessor I reach out to him on occasions when certain things I'm not quite sure on.
Yeah.
To get a clear cut answer based on his experience with that situation.
Okay. Any questions for Dana?
Thank you.
Okay,
Great.
thank you very much.
Very much.
Welcome, yeah.
Okay, Andrew. Who are next? Andrew Foster, our town accountant. And is this you, Deb, or?
Oh.
Yes.
Okay. This is Deb's night.
We spoke a while ago.
Yeah.
And, I'm gonna let you.
All right, my budget's pretty simple, so I just asked for $800 for professional development. Trying to get the NCPO license next year and $1,000. So the rest of that, I'll cover my budget. Cost of my audit fees, we switched firms this year. They're a bit more expensive than the ones I had previously, which is why I'm also gonna have to be asking for a reserve fund transfer.
Yeah.
Um,
So this will be one we talk about later tonight. You might want to explain it, so. Yeah,
and then I also increased my OPEB consultant. We alternate year to year. We have a larger report and a smaller one. This is a larger one, so I need more money in that account to cover it. And that's about it. I also cut my office supplies because I don't print as much paper as my predecessor, so.
saving trees, good.
The same formula error, I think, was caught in,
Yeah,
I sent out.
it looks like the totals are still right, but it doesn't have the dollar change correct for the professional development, but.
Okay,
Good catch.
okay.
So that's about it.
So could you want to just explain that, the transfer that we're going to talk about later?
Yeah,
What?
so I'm asking for $11,500. That's the difference I had between what I had budgeted for the audit for this year versus what we're gonna be paying for. We decided to switch audit firms, pretty much right before the audit started, for various reasons. So we went out and did an RFQ and, this is how much,
This is the difference that,
yeah.
yeah, okay.
So.
Okay, that happens when you change auditors. Price goes up.
Nobody likes it, right? Unless you've received,
No, no,
depending on any.
that's right, that's right.
Hey, can you maybe give a little background as to what you anticipate this upgrade of auditors will provide?
Well, certainly, they've done all the testing so far, but you get what you paid for. I like these guys a lot. They're very old school. They came in for about 3 weeks in person and, did all the testing while they were here and they were very thorough, so I'm liking them.
Are they able to share best practices and, you know?
Yeah,
share with you?
they'll end up coming in later, and I think they also, as part of their, package, they were supposed to come in and meet with the select board and, present the findings as well. So,
Okay, good.
Do any of the auditors have the last name Callahan?
No.
no.
That's too bad. Well, yeah, it's always interesting when you hear that when the controller says he likes the auditors, you have to be, well, but I think you're saying that their professionalism relative to what you were getting before is a big, and with the scrutiny that we're getting throughout, I think it's a great asset to have, and obviously you can count on and provide that support, so very good.
Andrew's a former auditor.
Yeah, I used to be.
Aha, he knows all the tricks.
I know what they should be looking for. So.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that they show up and they're on site is a much more efficient way.
I mean, the other ones would too, where they come in for 2 or 3 days. These were been here for a lot longer.
Now, speaking of the audit, what is the status of it?
So they did all the testing, well, maybe not all of it, but like 95% of it. They're working on the school and a year report review right now. And they'll do the single audit, I think, a little bit later.
That's the big, long report that goes to Desi.
That's the end of year report
That's
review. That's a DESI one.
Okay.
And then the single audit is for federal grants.
Federal grants, yeah.
So, but
When will they have the financial statement?
I'd say I'd get a draft probably sometime late February.
Okay,
We need to get everything by mid-March for continuing disclosure, the final report, but I'd expect mid to late February also draft.
and we had, I think, Ed was very interested in getting, copies of the audited statements to look at. So we might have you back just to share that with us and go through the highlights, I guess.
All right.
Okay. Any questions? I have a question, Chris.
Just a clarifying question. What's testing? What happens when the testing happens?
They go through my financial records, they go through accounts receivable, revenues, cash balances, and they're just essentially just checking to make sure that my financial statements actually match all my backup for everything. Make sure my balances match the treasurer's, make sure what I've reported to the state matches what I have in my financial records, that type of stuff.
They look at audit evidence, which is of reports and, you know, receipts and vouchers and stuff like that. Real exciting stuff.
Helpful to understand.
Yeah.
Does that get done every year or is it like
Yes,
every few years?
it's required to be done every year.
By the state or the town?
It's required by the state. Yeah, we're significant size enough.
I think if you're a certain size, they make it required, yeah.
And there are standards from government audit standards that need to be met, because the people who are using the financial statements are gonna rely on that work is done in compliance. Right? Right.
Yeah, we have a separate grant, the single audit is what it's called, or yellow book audit, that's specifically because we get over X amount in federal grant money, so the federal government also requires there to be an audit as well.
Yeah.
Which is good. Really good grants.
Yes, yes, very good, yeah. All right, well, I think, any other questions for Andrew? No?
Well,
Thank
you
you for-
did get a shout out about you being awesome in your work, so.
Great.
That's great
Yeah.
stuff.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nothing better than that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, oh, we're moving right along here. This is great. Got plenty of time. All right, Christine,
No, I think we're gonna do outreach.
go outreach, okay. We'll do outreach, okay. Oh, I skipped it. I'm sorry. I went over you. I apologize. I skipped you. Yeah, you were supposed to be after Pam. Yeah, you were supposed to be after Pam. My apologies.
No, Lawrence, like totally fine.
Oh, wait, let me pull up your, I do have your presentation, so just give me a second. Um,
While you're pulling that up, Steve, I'll just give a quick intro of our time together, and then I know we've got a presentation to go through. So Kathy and I met, feels like forever ago, but I think it was only a couple of weeks. Not a whole lot of change in the budget, this year and what's being requested, but, definitely a whole lot of stuff that you guys manage and do every day throughout the town. So, I'm excited for her to share with you all and a little bit more info on what outreach is doing for the community. Thanks.
sorry, it's just, I thought I had this up, but I guess I didn't, so.
Many of the slides you're about to pull up were more for your reference. There's only very few that have data points on that I'll speak to. So some of it was preview ahead of time if you're not familiar with what we do. So we'll be one of the quicker minutes today. Or the best.
PowerPoint slide, okay. There you go.
It was easy.
Okay,
You can just advance the slide. You can advance the slide. And again, some of this was just for your benefit. I'd like to pause you here for a second. This is one of the changes that I'd like to draw your attention to. We have had the exciting advancement of the creation of a human service department and some restructuring. And so I tried to give you a flow chart to show you what that looks like. So that looks like I sit sort of in two spots. Most of the time I sit in Medfield Outreach, but I'm also Director of Human Services, and that means that I oversee public health nurse, veterans agent, council on aging, as well as Medfield Outreach, and work very closely with library, park and rec, but do not oversee them. They are governed in a different way. And one of the great things that's exciting about this is it really gives us the opportunity to reduce silos, collaborate, share resources, which inevitably will save the town money. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. So a lot of times there's duplication of services across these various departments. So we have very simple examples of this is a shared database. Instead of each of us having a database of resources, we now dump into a shared database for housing, for referrals, for food insecurities, for unsheltered folks, et cetera. And we're kind of each identifying areas within those departments that we would like to take on as being sort of subspecialists, if you will. So instead of reinventing the wheel, we're able to sort of have point people to do that or funnel into one thing, which leverages our time to do other things, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one really exciting example. And I think in time, we'll see savings over that or expansion of programs and reach to our residents. So on the right is my day-to-day department, which is we're small but mighty. I have one full-time clinician. And I think that's what I'd like to draw your attention to. So I have one full-time clinician, and it's Mia Chencharulo. Coming soon to the box to the right is the opioid abatement funds. The person that will fill that position will sit in the outreach office, but again, we'll work very collaboratively, not only with the departments you see up there, but with others like Board of Health, some of our underserved housing areas in town, peer recovery areas, all sorts of ways that are outlined through the governance of the abatement funds and how they should be utilized. So that person will come. And then our prevention coordinator, there is actually another box that should be squeezed in. We will have another prevention worker that we're hiring soon. I want to point out to you though that both the abatement funds and the prevention are funded through grants. So the abatement funds have a little more longevity than do the prevention funds, which we are in our 5th year of a federal grant. And we are readying to apply for a competitive bid cycle year 6 through 10. But obviously we're optimistic that we'll get those funds, but not sure. And I have you hold that as we advance through different slides, you'll see that the impact that will have on the department should that funding go away. And then you don't have to go back, but the last two is you don't have, that's okay.
That's fine.
We bring on interns, graduate level interns to help expand our services at no cost to the town, besides obviously time and resource of our clinicians, but, okay, that's all for that stuff.
Okay.
Okay, so here is just the three major buckets of what we do, and really what I'd like to draw attention to is the data point below, which you'll see in calendar year 2023, over 1,300 hours were provided, and that's breaks down to about 25 hours per week of clinical services. So that's up from 965 in 2022. And while this is yay on us, this is not a good problem to have, because this indicates that there's need out there. And you all watch the news, you all hear about the mental health crisis, people are struggling, et cetera, et cetera. These numbers reflect that locally. The good news is while we're small, we're super efficient and we have a good reach, as you can see. What you didn't see here is another data point that of all the referrals we got for counseling, we were able to meet 1/3 of those in-house. So out of every 3 people that call, we're able to service 1 of those 3. That doesn't mean the other 2 go without service. We refer them out, we connect them to other connections to care. But I'm pretty proud of that number, given that you're talking, 1 full-time clinician, myself, is spread over multiple departments in 1 graduate level intern right now. So I'm excited to think about the capacity that we could bring with that other full-time clinician, with another full-time graduate intern, et cetera. Community assistance programming, that's like needs-based work. And a quick addition of those numbers is over 250 people benefited from various programs that we have. And I would point out that one of the things we're super proud of about that middle bucket is through relationships with other businesses, programs, departments in town that make that work possible. So that doesn't happen in isolation only with us. Like camperships happen with Park and Rec and the Medfield Foundation. And I could give you an example for every list on there. There's another community partner. So that's part of our skill set, is leveraging resources in the community. And then the last one is the one I asked you to hold in your mind about the prevention work. So the prevention work, we do 2 major sort of buckets of prevention: reduction of youth substance use. And we know we have a problem in Medfield based on the MWAS data. We know that Medfield youth use substances at rates that are in excess to our local Metro West counterparts. That is what made us eligible for that 5-year federal grant, of which we're in year 5 and hopefully soon to be in year 6. But so we have identified staff that's targeting specifically that problem with the whole sort of SPF. It's called Strategic Prevention Framework. There's all sorts of stakeholders. It's scientifically backed and evidence-based. But if you look, just the staff that were leveraged through that funding provided 2,500 hours last year alone in prevention work, which had the reach to over 1,000 youth students in this district. If you add in the coalition folks, you're up over 3,000 hours. So that's a huge impact. And we will look to demonstrate over time with data that supports that work about bringing those numbers down. But it takes time, which is why they give you up to 10 years to make that mark. So those are my major data points there.
Just a quick doubt, which I said it all. I'm sure it's my gut feelings is right, but how do you get the data that Medfield is above the average for other towns? How do you collect that?
That's through a uniform survey called the Metro West Adolescent Health Survey. And that survey is given every 2 years through students grades 6 through 12 in the public school. And that is, you could Google it. It gets released every so often. There was one that was just administered in November of this past year. Those results won't be out till late spring. And then you can compare apples to apples from here and Westwood and the other surrounding communities that participate, because those students are asked the same question. Does that answer your question? Yeah. It's like self-reported, right? It is self-reported. Yep, exactly. But there are like lie detector questions kind of built in. So if there's too many that are answered in a way, those get kicked out. So it has a good reliability scores. Okay, next slide. That's just what we mean when we say clinical services. It's just for your reference. You can go to the next slide. Those are some of our community assistance programs. Next slide. that's the highlight. Hopefully some of this looks familiar to you. That's one of our other prevention work. We do is suicide prevention. Major, September and May are our major months that we target. You can go to the next slide. MCAP is the one that we're federally funded through. And that's the one we have the 2 prevention workers that were in year 5.
When will you hear on the new grant?
So the bid process we anticipate is gonna open up, second week of February, and we've been preparing and working with consultants
Is
to
it
get.
like
that
this next month? Okay.
Then it's about 6 weeks, open for about 6 weeks and then it closes. So then you wait. And by fall, early fall. So as you can imagine, it's hard to keep staff in place with funding that may not be coming through again. And there's a lot of benefits, but some things that, some challenges around this work. So most other communities that we're hearing in year 6 that I remember coming back to school and people being like, we got it, or why we're still waiting, you know, from other communities that were in that year 6 phase. And then for our fiscal year for this ends September 30th.
For the current grant?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
So if we don't.
So this budget,
Find out.
the budget for 25 assumes that we will get it, is that?
Yeah, and we do have rollover funds and we've asked proactively if those rollover funds from that federal source could be used for interim funding for a program coordinator to stay on as we find other grants. In addition to that, we have our toe in BSAS Mass Call 3 funding, grant funding, which is a cluster community approach. But we haven't brought that in front of the select board yet because there's a lead agency and they don't have their paperwork in order yet. So we've given a soft, yes, we want to participate in this, which would give us some access to funds, but it would fund through Hopkinton and then much like other shared services do. But they have a lot of turnover and things happening in their town government that this keeps getting delayed a little bit. So we do have that and we do have some rollover funds.
So you feel comfortable that even if we weren't to get this, that the revenue loss would be covered by other sources? Okay.
Through the current year, through fiscal 25, and 26 becomes a whole new discussion.
Exactly. And that's why I keep laying this out is like so I'm gonna get to how easy my budget is this year because that is true,
Yeah.
right? And so that's, so I'm just sort of saying like, when you see next year, it might keep, I'm hoping it's the same story and I say, this is great and we're in great standing again, but it could be very different.
Yeah, it could be a tough conversation. Yeah.
And other communities like Needham, for example, have gone through this process and then rolled that prevention worker into the town budget, sometimes cost shared over different departments, sometimes in their own, one department. So different towns are looking for sustainability in a variety of ways. And we're hoping that we have 5 more years to prepare for that, or 4-ish. With the continued funding, because the goal of that grant really does look like the meaningful change happens over 10 years. So they do want to fund as many as they can, but they fund 50. So depending on year to year, those numbers fluctuate on how many you're competing against. So
50 in Massachusetts?
no, 50 in the country.
In the whole country?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's about-
It would make sense they'd want to continue it to get the full 10-year
Yeah.
run.
But we should all knock on wood, our consultant has been 100% funded. So the person we're working with. So
Oh, that's good, maybe.
if she doesn't, sorry, no. So that's us. And then our budget really is super straightforward. Our operating budget is really small. It's about $25,000. It remains fairly stable. Our service is in the people. We do our work. We're a social service department. It is our people that provide the service, not the stuff. There was a $700 increase, and that is under the line, and I will bring your attention to it, to professional development, because my anticipation is that opioid abatement role will get filled. And then to keep licenses current in our field, you need a certain amount of CEUs every 2 years. And so that's equal budgets now over the 3 people that was utilizing that. And that's the reason for the request there. There might be one more slide, but
Good goals.
yeah, it's just goals, but that's okay.
I think.
We already spoke to those about, the future, maybe with. So, good luck.
Oh, you've got a lot going on. Small little department.
Yeah.
So you're making a difference, hopefully.
Don't look down. huh?
I'm. Just keep going, just
Yeah.
keep going.
Any questions? Questions?
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Good luck on the grant.
Thank you, yeah, fingers crossed.
That's sure. You have both of us for council on aging.
Oh, awesome. Okay, Council on Aging. Our director couldn't be here tonight.
Sarah couldn't be here, so Kathy and I said we would stand in for her, so I apologize. You did a much better presentation from Sarah than the two of us, but we will do our best.
Okay, who has?
I do. So, Sarah and I met a couple weeks ago, not a lot of change with her, budget, which you guys will go through. I'm sure it's gonna give her a good, some programming and whatnot she's got going on, so. I'll
Yeah,
turn it over.
you guys have more to her programs. I mean, she's got a tremendous amount of programs. Sarah started, a little over a year ago, so she was disappointed not to, similar to Katie, to be able to finally present to you, for her second year. So, Sarah's doing a tremendous job at Council on Aging. We continue to increase the programs there for our seniors, increase the attendance at the programs. As you know, we have an exciting garage project coming up. We're working with the Permanent Planning and Building Committee on that. It's been a little stalled as we finished out the water treatment plant, but that project is on the horizon. We essentially have no increase in her budget going forward for this year.
Yeah.
Is using every spare inch of that building.
Yes.
Yeah,
Even
it's-
using the hairdressing area for other programming, they really are utilizing.
yeah,
It's a bustling. I'm in there a lot more, as you can imagine, and it is busy and
Always busy.
lots of life, lots of good things happening there, so.
And we're full staffing up there as well, which is great.
great,
So,
that's great. Yeah, the budget looks fairly stable.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I would
What's the
invite
timing?
you to
What's-
drop in, especially if you're gonna go vote in person, to just drop in and see the seniors.
Yeah. What's the timing on the garage? Like, when do they plan? to-
So, we had to cancel a meeting that we had in January. We anticipate meeting next month to start figuring out, where we're gonna go with, design build. Putting out an RFP to hire an architect to come in. We have some preliminary designs that were done about 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
But with the, housing project that's on Hinkley South, we have had some ideas, maybe shifting that garage. It was originally supposed to be on that side of the building. Possibly shifting that to the other side. And then there was some discussion about whether or not the garage should actually make a connection into, the existing Council on Aging. So we're looking at all those different scenarios, once we put an architect, on board.
Okay.
Yeah, and, I'm sad to report that the 2 new buses are delayed, but that's great because our garage is delayed too, so we see.
Keep it going longer, that's all.
Keep them shinier. and longer.
Yeah, and so we are taking bets on what will happen first, so feel free to get it.
All right. Any questions? About Council on Aging?
It's longer, thanks to Sarah, she's doing a great job. with it.
Yeah, yeah, to let her know that we missed her, but
We'll let her know.
we'll have her back next year. All right, great, thank you. All right.
Then I don't know, you want to start with the town administrator budget? I think Jeff has a lot of my budget.
I was gonna say, I have them all, well, not all of yours, but all several in a row and from this week. It's like 2 days, and, where are you starting, town administrator?
Let's go with the town administrator budget.
Okay.
I don't know, this is a tough one.
I know. For a lot. This budget,
A lot of zeros on this.
Yeah, we're fairly stable, year to year, so we're not asking for any increases in the town administrator budget this year. But we take suggestions if you're looking.
Say, there's a lot to talk about here.
Are the increases for your salary considered?
They're-
Budget?
So they are not in here. I'm on I have a, employment agreement with the select board, that is currently under negotiation now. So that will probably not be decided until after this goes to print. So there will probably need, a need for a reserve fund transfer, in next year's budget to cover that.
Sorry, I didn't actually mean me specific.
Oh.
For everybody else, it's the same as it was.
Correct.
It's all, there's no raises reflected in here.
That is
It's all
correct.
put aside in the
Yes,
first.
we are holding a 3%, COLA increase, and that's reflected in the human resources budget. We hold it there, in order to make the final, determination on what that increase will be.
Did you want to say something?
I would say when you're looking at the book, everybody's budgets, though, there are step increases reflected, but
Okay,
no COLA and nothing else, just
Right.
step increases.
Yeah.
But in the town administrator budget, there are no
No steps.
steps in that.
Yeah, yeah.
They're all 3 are salaried. And just for your purposes, that it covers Brittany and Frank and myself. So there's 3 of us in that.
okay.
Let's see. What are we on this list? I have town council next on the list.
Okay,
We're actually proposing a reduction to the town council budget this year, and that's, based on, our collective bargaining agreement timing. We'll be heading back into negotiations with police and fire. But based on when we'll do that for the timing, we felt we could reduce, labor council on that. I typically don't have labor council at my collective bargaining sessions. We did this past year with police, mainly because we were negotiating, such a large issue with civil service, that both sides felt, it was more appropriate for each of us to be represented by labor council. But typically in the past, we don't bring an attorney to the table, if the union doesn't bring one. So I don't anticipate, that for this year. So we were able to reduce that budget, by 10,000. I think next up is information technology. And we are not proposing, any increases for this.
okay,
Just for clarification, that's information technology that is just on the town side. So while we do have a shared IT director and IT program coordinator, that we share with the schools, this is just the operating expense, in IT for, the IT program coordinator and then our operations, on the town side, on the school side.
so this is Owen's salary, basically split.
This is actually Carlos
Oh,
DeSantis,
Carlos,
who's our
Okay.
IT program coordinator, so this is his salary.
Okay,
The town pays 100% of Carlos's salary and the schools pay 100% of Owen's, and then we share both of those employees, school and town.
got it, okay. Okay,
Okay, next up, I have human resources. And Peter already stole my line on that, so we're good. Peter and I had a back and forth as to why the human resources budget had such a large line item. And none of his budgets that he was reviewing had any raises for anybody, so, that's not because we're making any judgments. It's, for accounting purposes, instead of updating every line item budget, we wait and hold this pooled money here until we determine what the final, cost of living increase will be before Andrew will then take that amount of money and distribute it to all of the individual budgets. Once that's been voted, and the personnel board will be meeting later this month to finalize that,
later in February,
later in February.
okay. If we did the equipment stuff, right? Did we do that?
For information technology,
Oh, yeah, the operating expenses.
That's operating
Yeah, okay, sorry, that's part of the.
Sure. Just because it's great that there's no increase. But everything seems to go up in price and there's no expectation that software licenses and other things like that.
we
are gonna
incorporated
go
all of that in here.
I think next year could be
Next year's going to be, yeah,
the big.
Oh, yeah.
No, go ahead.
I would say it's on, I remember from last year, it's on contracts, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and we actually had a reduction by 5,000. You'll see under capital equipment replacement, we had a capital budget article for capital replacement. We've been able to utilize that and we've been able to reduce that by 5,000. Still have some left in there. So, but I agree with Frank, next year is gonna
She hasn't
be a
done
different
it.
issue. Some of our IT contracts come up for renewal.
Yeah, prior years.
That reflects the number having been spread out.
Yeah, right. Sorry, Bob had a question about.
Well, my only question was, looking at prior years in the human resources side, those numbers that are reflected in prior years, that reflects the reclasses to each one of the departments?
No, so you'll see 31,275. That's actually the salary, the schools in the town share human resources director. And that's actually Kathy Vanden Boom's, that's our portion of her salary. The 31,275, there's 32,839. So you won't see that large number, which it's listed here under managerial merit, which is actually a COLA. That 157,885, you won't see that because Andrew will take that money before this goes to print, and that will be distributed. to each individual. Yeah, so the smaller amounts that you see left, the 31,275, 32,839, and 33,825. that's
Is
Kathy's
after
salary.
all, it's been spread out the department.
Yep, that's once the COLA goes, and then that's
you.
Kathy's salary.
Okay, sorry to interrupt.
No, fine. Let's see. Town report, town meeting. If there's any questions on that?
Any questions on that? It looks fairly straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to make the warrant report smaller, we're all for it.
Yeah.
Reduce our budget, but I don't see that happening.
Yep.
I don't have the other. So sealer of weights and measures.
Yes, so, I looked at the packet today and I did not put some of those smaller departments, the line items, so we could hold on those.
If you want to hold those, I'll present them on the next one. We
Okay.
didn't have a chance to look at them.
All right.
They're very small, but I'm happy to speak to them.
Yeah, well, maybe we could do that next meeting
Yeah.
then?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. No, don't leave.
I'm not going, you have me sold. It's fine.
I think we're probably will do the reserve fund transfers now.
So I have some great news on the reserve fund transfers. I thought we wouldn't have an answer until next week, but we were able to take the Baxter Park, which was the emergency repairs, just a few days before the holiday stroll, so the holiday stroll could go forward. We had some electrical repairs. We're going to be able to use ARPA funding on that, so we don't need a reserve fund transfer for that this evening.
That is good news.
It's great news. So all we're looking for tonight is a reserve fund transfer, as Andrew explained, the 11,500 for the new auditors. And then, as you know, well, I'm sorry, you may not all know, we've been trying to hire a conservation agent for about a year and a half now since our last agent left. It's a part-time position. We have not had very good luck finding it. I think last time we posted, there were 8 or 9 other conservation agents at the same time. It seems to be, we're having very difficult time finding it. We tried to do a joint position with the town of Sherburne. Conservation Commission here and the Conservation Commission in Sherburne were not really open to having a shared agent. They would each like their own full-time agent. We don't disagree, but in order for us to meet the Warrant Committee guidance this year, we weren't able to fund a full-time conservation agent. I think it's something we're gonna need to look for next year. And we'll see what happens when we have some revised budget guidance later on in this budget season. But we're spending a lot more to have a private contractor come in to do this work for us than if we actually had somebody on staff.
See, if you increase building fees. To hire a conservation agent.
We're gonna have coffee this week.
It's a seamless web.
Oh, what a web.
I've got 3 people who sit up there you need to have coffee with. So one of the things, so Conservation Commission has part-time funds, has funds available in salary for their part-time agent. But because we're utilizing a consultant, we cannot pay salary to an outside consultant.
So we're asking for a reserve fund transfer of this $28,700.50. That covers, I believe it's July to December, July to December. Once we get next month, we will transfer, we will request a transfer from you and the select board to transfer their salary line item to their operations line item. And we'll be able to pay the second half year of that contract for.
Okay, so we'll see that in the form of a transfer.
You'll see it in a transfer and
As
then we'll be
opposed to
able to pay
reserve
that
fund. Got it.
directly out of there.
Any questions on these two transfers? Do we have to vote on these, right?
Yes, a vote and I do need a signature as well.
Okay, so, do we have to vote individually or can we do them both? at
No,
the
you can
same
do
time?
both as long as you list both
Okay.
of them and the amounts.
Okay, so I'd entertain a motion to, approve the town accountant 11,500 and the Conservation Commission for 28,750 cents.
So moved.
Okay. Second, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so we are at the elementary school building discussion.
Can I've got a couple small budgets for review.
Oh.
Public health and veterans. I think we were just gonna tackle those.
Yes, that's my bad. I didn't put them in the
It
packet.
didn't go in the packet.
Oh, okay, all right,
Yeah,
next time.
sorry, so, yeah. We'll
All right.
do it next time.
Yeah, I got
Gotcha.
you too.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Just like trying to get them all out.
No.
Good effort.
I put all those smaller ones on one sheet and all the, apparently that one sheet.
Oh, okay, I get that. No, that's okay.
Or something, so I.
No big deal. They're pretty straightforward, so it won't take any time at all.
Okay. Oh, let me do that right now, so I forget. Take 2 seconds. But I just, today's the 30th, right?
Yeah, 30. I've been writing letters for 12 days.
There's 8 of us, right? 8. Okay, so this is the 28. 28, 700. 50. Okay, great. Okay, so, elementary school, last time we met, we, got an update from Peter on the school building committee and they, Peter, gave us that update and we talked about, this, question that we're wrestling with on the school building committee with, the MSBA, not getting into the MSBA program and then having to sort of think about what's the next steps, right? So I know we didn't get too far in that discussion, but it wasn't on our agenda, quite honestly, so I didn't want to go too far, but I did resurrect a presentation that I had done almost a year ago, and it was around this financial modeling for a school, build a new elementary school. I thought we'd go through some of that just as background, and then we could kind of talk what people think about, what feedback they give Peter for the committee. So this is again a very high level. It's order of magnitude. These are not precise numbers, but these are questions that I had come up with. What should the design enrollment be? They're doing a study on that. The grade configuration, I know they've talked about that, and I think they kind of, or I don't know if they've settled on that, but they might be just leaning towards the current grade configuration. And they got a presentation on the educational program and at one of their recent meetings. It was a very good presentation, actually. So they still need to look at space needs, which, but today I wanted to just revisit the last two here, which is what's an acceptable tax impact for residents and what's the source of project funding? These are questions I raised a year ago. So just a little level setting in terms of what impacts the cost to taxpayers of a new school. Three broad categories: the interest rate at the time of borrowing, the project cost, which is the amount of the borrowing, and the loan terms. Under the interest rate, the borrowing environment is not something we control. It's highlighted in yellow here. The credit rating is obviously something we control. We're AA currently, but probably be difficult to move to a AAA. And so probably will be a AA. Although it doesn't mean we shouldn't try. And construction costs are another big unknown on the project cost. Space needs, design enrollment, and educational programming all drive the project costs, as well as a key decision of whether you do a design bid build or you do a construction manager at risk and how you bid it. And then on loan terms, most schools are funded with a 30-year term loan. There is a proposal at the state level. The governor has proposed in some recent legislation to allow a 40-year term loan. So it'll be interesting to see if that passes. But that's obviously a function of the pressure that towns are seeing with trying to build a new school with the current rate environment and the cost. And then the method of amortization, there's two methods you can pick. It's, I have modeled here the level debt one, which is gives you the most favorable answer. So on the question of enrollment, I just updated some of these numbers. This is from the fall of 2023, the NESDEC enrollment on the left. And you can see where we are currently, 404. It kind of, stays around 400 pretty much the whole period. It's kind of pretty consistent, 200 per class. This on the right is just the breakout between the two grades. So this was something I shared, about a year ago, and this is basically, I modeled the 3 different enrollments, 4 different enrollments, excuse me, in terms of how many classrooms you would need and what's the space requirement for those classrooms. So we start with the planned enrollment, and I just split it evenly between grade 4 and 5. There's a policy on how many, what the general classroom student policy is per classroom. And that gets you do the math, that gets you the number of general classrooms. You can't have a fraction of a classroom, so you round up to the number of general classrooms. And the MSBA, the one requirement they have, the MSBA, is they do require a minimum class size of 900 square feet. They allow you a range between 900 and 1,000, but the 900 is a minimum requirement. So I've used that here, and what you can see is that there's no difference between a 450 and a 475 enrollment in terms of net floor space for general classrooms. It goes up, obviously. The 575, that was the WELOC proposal that was proposed. So, you're talking like maybe 5,000 square feet difference between a 450 and a 575 square foot, 575 enrollment in terms of general classroom net floor area. So this is the program space areas of that WELOC proposal. And I've sort of anchored the analysis in this because there was a lot of designers and architects that looked at this. Excuse me, I dropped my glasses. So, and this is what was, approved by the last school building committee. And over on the right, I've broken out that core academic between the general classroom space, and they had some additional space for a STEM and some breakout rooms. But they had like 26 classrooms, for general classrooms. And this also has the MSBA guidelines in it. And you'll see that they were fairly close, except for the gym. We all know the gym was a little larger than the guideline for the MSBA. The interesting thing about these MSBA guidelines is they're just that, they're guidelines. They're not requirements. You can go under them if you want to. You can go over them if you want to. You just won't get reimbursed. The MSBA won't reimburse you, for things that go outside of the. So, but you can do whatever you want.
Do they reimburse you if you go under?
Up to, not up to their guideline, but whatever your number is. Yeah. Yeah. So, so anyway, this is, you'll see this is, the schematic design was what was proposed. And 95,000 gross, 63 net. So all I did is I took those numbers for the net floor area. So if you look back here, the 63 for the 63,885. That's the starting WELOC proposal. I adjusted the 2,200 for the difference in the gym space between what was proposed and what the guidelines had. And then I reduced the general classroom space for each enrollment scenario. So the 575, I didn't make any changes to because that was the baseline. And I took out 3,600 for the 500 and 5,400 square feet for the low enrollment, the 450. So I modeled this net floor space of 56, 58, and 61. I didn't look at any other space in the building in terms of, I just assumed that it wasn't, it wasn't as sensitive to changes in enrollment. This is interesting. This kind of shocked me when I looked at this. And you can see it's sort of a hyperbolic curve that's occurring here. We did this a year ago, and the cost I modeled was 700 to 800. It was a range. When I looked at this, I looked at the far upper right corner, and each one of these dots represents a school. Okay, whether it's a school that they develop cost estimates for. Okay, some of them passed. The X's are the ones that fail in a town vote. The actual orange color means it went out to bid. But the MSBA process, I looked at the ones up in the far right corner here. Some of them are high schools, some are middle schools. I just looked at elementary schools, and I captured ones that were the most current cost information. So these were ones that they're gonna go out to bid in 2025, a year, 18 months from now. So they're submitting their cost estimates now to the MSBA.
What's a plus?
That's a PSR phase of the MSBA process, a preliminary schematic report. It's the first time they actually give cost data to the MSBA, and they have professional estimators, submit it. So I'll show you the next page, but the range is like 850 to 900. So that's what's happened in a year's time with the cost of what's going on. These are the schools right here. that Burlington, Quincy, Dedham, Situate, and Stoughton. The Quincy one is supposed to be coming out in a few weeks. I didn't have that data. But the other four you can see range from 850 to 900. You know, they're all under 550 in terms of enrollment. It's interesting, the smaller the school, the higher the per square foot cost, because you don't get the economies. But there's a 515 in here at 850. There's a 550 at 845. And there's a 460 at 874. So this is, that's what I modeled. I modeled the 850 to 900. And just for comparison purposes, you know, a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, we were at 675. That's what's happened with costs. These are just construction costs for new construction. And then this is again, I'll walk you through this. So basically, this is just the net floor areas for each cost point, 850 and 900. And the WheeLock, again, it's just adjusted for, you know, the 4 classrooms for the 500 enrollment, 6 classrooms for the 475 enrollment. And then there is a grossing factor that most designers use when they do planning at this level. It's 1.5. It also happens to be it's the ratio that the MSBA also uses for reimbursement. So they look at your overall net floor area, and then they'll allow you a 1.5 grossing factor. They won't reimburse for anything over that. So designers take very great care to stay within that grossing factor. And it's my understanding is it's very difficult to get below that. Maybe 1.49 or 1.48, but I checked maybe 10 schools when I looked at this a year ago. I couldn't find any that were, you know, they maybe 1.49 or 1.4, but there wasn't any that was below that. So that gets you the gross square feet, and the rest is kind of just math. It's just multiplied by the construction cost per square foot. You get to your total construction cost. And then there's a 25%. So I should point out that the construction cost includes site work. It does not include any costs for for modulars. Those are ineligible to get reimbursed for the MSBA. So that's not in there. And there's a 25% soft cost and contingency factor. And then the good news is that the MSBA reimbursement rate has gone up. So for a 450 enrollment school, you're talking about $23.6 million of potential reimbursement. I'll go back to this for a second, because I think this is an important point. So we were at 3 years ago, the MSBA was at a $333 square foot reimbursement rate. They're the green, see this green line? I don't know if you can see it on the slide, but it's this green line. It just kind of, you know, putted along a little bit above 300. And like in 2020, I think beginning of 2021, it was 333. They've had 3 increases since then. They've increased it to 432 through September 30th, 2022. It went up again to 568 through September 30th, 2023. And the current rate now is 605. So I think the point here that I want people to understand is that if you were a town that made a decision 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years, say 2 years, even 2 years ago, that you didn't want to go into the MSBA program. You lost this insurance. You didn't get this protection. All these cost increases you owned. So that's an important point I think people need to understand. If you're not in that MSBA program, there is some insurance. Historically, there's been insurance. Doesn't mean it'll be there. You never know what'll happen, but historically, there's some evidence of them changing that reimbursement rate when there's inflation that's going on. So, so this is just some background on the borrowing, the rate.
Steve,
Yeah.
can I ask him that
Yeah,
question?
yeah.
You're saying that the reimbursement went from 330 to 600, was that on that side?
605, yeah.
Yeah, yet when you modeled the estimated cost of the project, in the next slide, and said that the MSBA reimbursement would be like 23 million, that's more like 25%, but like 600 from 300 per square foot is a 100% increase, so I just don't get the math there. You know what I'm saying?
So yeah, so
Like, is there
there's
a
a,
ceiling to that?
the way, the formula is in the column on the right. So the way it works for the reimbursement is there's a basis that they reimburse on, and you first calculate that basis, which is basically the 605 times, so the example down below, if you look at it, for 450 student enrollment, it's 84,000 gross square feet times 605. Plus there's an allowance for soft costs, right? And then it's 40% of that.
Oh,
Is
okay.
what they, yeah, so
Okay,
there's a
alright.
40%, every town gets a different, like a town like Wellesley would probably be the lowest, they'd probably be like 31% or something like that. That's the baseline, everybody gets 31, and then
Okay.
they adjust it based on a bunch of different things. One of them is the income levels of the town, and the other is, incentive, they give incentives if you do certain things in your design, so. So does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So the interest rate assumption, it's at least a couple years away. I used level debt, and the other point that's important is that some people say, well, why are you worried about interest rates? You could always refinance it. Well, you're locked in for 10 years, when you do a borrowing like this. And we have a Tri-County Tech at 4.25. Last time I did this, I modeled 3.5 to 5. So the midpoint was 4.25. This time I lowered it to 3.5 to 4.5. So the midpoint is like 4%. And that's only because, there's sort of this trend now of rates hopefully stabilizing and coming down. So, so these are just the numbers of what the borrowings look like with those rate assumptions. I will, I did it for, I used 875 because otherwise there would just be too many numbers. So rather than 850 and 900, I just took the midpoint. And you could see, this page sort of shows you an example of a 450 enrollment school at a 4% rate with a 30-year, it says level principal, it should be level debt, but so these are all modeled off of level debt. But you can see that and this is from from Renee's spreadsheet that she provided, basically the assessed values, the old tax bill, the new tax bill with that type of a debt, burden for that assumed school. And you could see that, it's, if you don't go into the MSBA, it results in a $334 increase to taxes for the average single-family home. That's the bottom one, the 903. And but if you remember that the Wheelock proposal was $852 for the average household. So it's a 39% increase from, from that Wheelock proposal. And it's a range, if you look at just the million to the 1,000,005, it's a range of $371 to $556 of increased taxes to the taxpayer. So, I think that's really, that was, I just wanted, I think this model it's got some reasonable assumptions in it. I think it's not precise, but it's order of magnitude. It'll give you an idea. These increases are before you get to any normal increase in our tax bill, like 2 or 3% every year. So you'd have to add that onto this. So, it's significant to families. But I thought people should understand it. This last slide is just the MSBA process. There's 2 slides here, just so people understand that when you apply, and if they, in December, they get back to you, and if they say, well, we would like to invite you to the eligibility period, and these are the things that go on in that eligibility period. You basically say, I understand the program. These are all fairly simple and easy things to do, but nevertheless, it's part of their process. So you just, say you understand the program. They like to look at your membership on the SBC, and they don't usually tell you to take somebody off, but they can tell you to add somebody that's not there, like a select person, something like that. And then they do look at design enrollment. That's one thing that they do early on, and they will weigh in on that. If you remember the last proposal, they upped the design enrollment that was submitted. And then the confirmation of they want to make sure you have funding to move forward for the feasibility study. And then there's a standard agreement that they make you sign. And then the next step is the actual procurement of the OPM and the designer. And they have a standard process. They have standard templates and contracts to help you do that. They do weigh in on the designer decision. So it's important that if whatever work the SBC does in the next 9 or 10, 8 months or so, whatever designer they pick, then, and the designers all know this, some designers may opt not to propose on any work until they know, because if you get into the MSBA program, the MSBA has to weigh in on that decision. You can't jump that decision point with the MSBA, and it's big dollars, right? Big dollars for designers. The big fees are when they start, doing the detailed design, the construction, all that stuff. So, and all the designers know that, so they won't, some of them might not even bid, to work with us if they know we're applying to the MSBA program. And then I'm sure they could always get somebody to do some work. And then they do the feasibility study, and this is where they look at the educational program, the space needs, they document existing conditions. A lot of this stuff has already been done from the last project. It could be quickly, be refurbished and packaged and submitted without a lot of effort. The number 5 there is where they, you have to look at your alternatives, and then that's what they call the preliminary design report, a PDP, preliminary design program. Number 6 is where you actually pick a preferred solution. That's the PSR phase of the MSBA process.
Mhm.
That's where you actually have, cost estimates for different alternatives, and then the local community picks the committees that are working on this, they pick a location and a design, and they say, this is the one we prefer. And then all this goes to the MSBA, and they review it to make sure that you've done a comprehensive job. And then, and they'll ask questions, so they come back, and then once, so that's the feasibility study. The next phase is the schematic design, where you take that preferred solution, and then you actually spend a lot of money doing a detailed design. So this is where, they get really detailed. And it takes a while to do this phase. It doesn't go quickly. Up until now, things can move very quickly. And they have to have something that's the basis of a budget proposal that goes to be voted on by the town and approved by the MSBA, basically, is what happens. And then the last step is once you've got the project approved by town vote, then you do the really detailed design and construction documents, and you do your bidding and all that stuff. That's kind of how it works. So I just thought people would, appreciate. These are just appendices that were in my slides.
It's a ton of work, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That's really
Yeah.
clear.
So I don't know what people think, but about this question of, I will say that I know that the select, when the SBC went and looked at this and they presented to the select board. I think Gus was the most vocal at that meeting. He said that
This is the last time you're talking about?
this was like maybe in November,
Oh, this-
December.
This most current one.
Yeah, November, December. He was very concerned about cost. Obviously, Gus is always concerned about cost, but he had, at that meeting, he threw out $1,000 number and said, that would be too much. He was obviously focused on the impact of taxpayers and cost.
Not $1,000 per square foot.
No, the impact of taxpayers.
Numbers are crazy.
So,
Yeah.
it's scary when you look at the numbers. It's, there's not a lot of,
Well,
not a lot of good news there.
I think that, this has been presented, and I think for the, as the process continues, this kind of update is really valuable
Yeah, very
for us
valuable.
as a committee. But I also suggest that, and Peter and Steve, consider keeping this in front of the school building committee in terms, because I know you've done a presentation once.
Yeah.
But I think as you update this, some process of review and updating just to keep people focused, it would be important. So that'd be Peter as.
Well, if they would like, I'd be happy to,
I
leave
was
it up to them.
intending to suggest that they re-invite or invite a second time Steve to come and give this presentation, which I think is very valuable and helpful. Obviously, it's up to them whether they accept or not, but Steve has told me he'd be happy to come if they do invite him. And it's hard to believe they wouldn't invite him, but we'll find out.
So
Yeah.
question on the status that you had on slide 19 and 20, are we not yet at eligibility phase with the project? Like when we're looking at that?
This, what precipitated this was that, or not the only thing that precipitated it. At the last meeting of our committee, at the Warrant Committee, I reported that and the town knows this, we applied to get in the December 2023 round, and we did not get in.
Mhm.
So we're now at the fork in the road. do we,
They're free.
So you don't, to answer your question, you don't move to eligibility
Right.
unless they invite you. in.
Right, right.
Right.
It's another,
so
go
we
this
have to
path.
wait till,
Every year you have to,
do we reapply seeking admission in December of 2024 this year? Or do we decide to try to go it on our own? But as this, I mean, as this presentation makes clear, that's very, very expensive. I don't know what the SBC is going, the collective group of the school building committee is gonna want to do. I think it's kind of daunting to think about not trying to get MSBA funding, but it's not even this committee's call individually, it's up to the SBC.
right.
yeah, and it's actually I mean, the SBC will obviously weigh in on it, but the actual application gets signed by the school committee and the select board. Not the SBC, but, yeah.
Okay.
One thing that I Googled this, and this may not be the right data, but what I Googled, Andover has been rejected 10 years in a row. Martha's Vineyard, 6 years in a row, Burlington, 10 years in a row. So it's not, I don't think that there's a data point of, we just gotta wait a year or so, it'll be good to go.
That's,
I don't know.
I've had that conversation, and other members of the SBC talked about that. Some members of the SBC said, yeah, we can reapply for December 2024, but we don't know that we can get it. And then we've lost
I don't know.
potentially
Yeah.
another year of planning towards the school, which we pretty desperately need a new school there. So, but you're absolutely right. It's not like the fact that we come back again means, oh gosh, now we'll give it to them. There's.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think I remember hearing from the last go around that the expectation was that it would be 3 to 5 years to get back in. So the minimum was 3 years. This was Mike Quinlan, I think, said this. So 3 to 5. So it's only been 2. Now, am I saying that we should just, keep applying for 10 years? No.
2018. So extrapolating from Red Sox, sorry.
No.
I don't know. It's such that is what
Yeah.
Pete just said.
Now,
It's
there-
such an unknowable.
Yeah, I mean, there are examples. I know you quoted the ones who didn't get in for a long time, but there are examples of towns that got in less than those periods.
Yeah, sure.
Like Amherst and,
Sure.
There's another one up in the North Shore, Swampscott.
But it's
So-
a question of, do you want to live with that uncertainty? But
Yeah, and how long do you wait before you just say, you know what? Enough time has passed and we need to move forward without the MSBA. That's the question to me, is like, have we given this enough time? Because I will tell you, if you do not apply, say they make a decision to not do it this year, after 2 years, to not apply. People voted yes on the last project because it had MSBA funding. If you move forward, you make a decision not to apply and not even try to get the MSBA funding, there will be a new no vote that forms against the project because you didn't do that. And so that's my fear. We got to get to 67%,
Which is hard.
and it's hard. Because,
What about the other 2 levers? I think we kind of skirted over it. The grade configuration seemed like that was set by, I don't know who even decides that, but that seemed like that was a non-movable item because the which committee said, hey, this is what we want to do. Maybe we provide feedback that should be something that's revisited, or maybe we say, listen, this is going to be complicated. We should revisit a few of those things to try to find levers that can unlock some of the stuck part that we're in.
Well, I think, I would, I mean, yeah, I think, I will just tell you what I know. I think from the last project, when they did look at the more than a 2-grade configuration, they did look at a 3-grade configuration. The numbers were huge.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, making it bigger is
So
not the answer, but.
They changed course and
Right.
said we're gonna go to 2 grades.
So what I read online, which may not be accurate, was that there was capacity in some of the other schools. So the Blake and the high school have more capacity or under capacity. So we're sort of stuck with this, Dale being the problem and,
You mean you read it, oh, you mean you read it on Concerned Citizens?
yeah,
Yeah, we looked at that question at
Did
the
you?
Warrant Committee.
okay.
Yeah, we studied it. And,
And-
and it's, there's all the data is on, there's a presentation on it, on the website.
Okay,
And
that's not the,
we actually, Ed and I actually walked the schools and we looked at the cost of, of doing modulars and stuff like that. But we did look at the question of excess space.
and it's not gonna be solved.
And at that time, it wasn't big enough to solve 400 kids without massive interruption of the programming that was going on at the existing schools. Was kind of what we walked away with. So,
Dave, I have a question. The updated scatter plot, I guess, of the MSBA projects that are going on. With the cost rising so much per square foot, is there, maybe we haven't looked at it. Is there any increase in renovation projects versus new build projects?
there, when you say is there any interest, I think.
Increase, rather, right?
Oh, well,
Increase filings and
Yeah,
for that.
there's very few data points on ad renos is the problem, which is why I didn't pick cost data on that. And-
Okay,
And each
It's
one
good to
is,
be out
each
there.
one is unique and different,
Mhm.
some are just doing a really small addition onto a building and others are being, it's all very, very unique. And there's only like a handful of them, so the population there just aren't that many.
Mhm.
It's there on the website.
Yeah, okay.
And it's, when, all I know is when they did the last estimate, they looked at ad reno and it wasn't significantly, it was a little cheaper, but it wasn't significantly cheaper than new construction. That's how the numbers came out last time.
Mhm.
So anyway, I think, but that's clearly an option. It's still an option to do an ad reno.
Yeah, I mean, if you're thinking about self-funding, certainly. I
Yeah.
mean,
And MSBA covers ad reno.
they would too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you pay the program for that, but just
Yeah.
other alternatives.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that.
That's something that, I'm sure they will look at an ad reno option,
Don't have to.
and,
I'm just curious if more other districts have gone that way because of maybe doing.
I think,
Biggest problem,
everything
so-
I've seen, I've only, I've looked at, I don't know, I studied Amherst quite a bit because they were someone who had a failed vote and then got back in the MSBA program.
Mhm.
And the Amherst one, when they redid their numbers, there was a very similar situation. There was very little difference between ad reno and new construction. It's not significant.
And when the book tech people came here last year.
They had the same
They
thing.
had, I mean, this is from memory, and I think they said an ad reno would be. I'm pulling numbers, but there was like a $15 million gap, and in fact, building new was cheaper than the ad reno in that particular instance. Is at least my memory.
But it's something,
My memory.
yeah, it's something to study, at a certain point in the process, because it's, the difficulty is when you look at the MSBA information, it's just construction costs. So in an ad reno, it doesn't include modulars.
Right.
So
Right, and we have some good baseline on that.
you'd have to get, the project cost,
Right,
not just construction.
right, and I
costs.
think one of the tough things on that too is, so it depends on the scope of the ad reno, right? And
Yeah.
So other towns might be feeling the same crunch. Maybe they're doing smaller projects over time rather than
Yeah.
a large ad reno, but
Yeah.
it's a gradual way, I guess, to get to the
a really
same
good
place,
idea.
but spreading it out. and-
My sense of Dale is that an ad reno there would be
You don't wanna like touch one tile and then the rest.
You really gotta do a lot of runoff.
Right, during.
That's my sense, and I'm not a builder, so I should.
Yeah.
I'm not there, so I don't know. But I recall from the last conversation too, and it's not in the assumptions is the cost of mothballing old buildings. What is that done to the tax bill as well? So it'll be interesting to see how the committee works through those decisions. So we can get like
Yeah.
total project costs, but then also total tax increase townwide on, the actual project and then residual effects from doing the project too, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I mean, to me, you gotta get to 67%, and I think that, taking an action now that, I mean, we're talking about, there's an article being proposed to create a tax mitigation stabilization
Right,
fund
yeah.
to save
Yeah.
money to the taxpayer.
Mhm.
And making a decision to walk away from $23 million is counter to that. I mean, it's like,
Right.
I'm having a hard time getting that through my head of why we would do that. Why wouldn't we do everything possible?
The uncertainty.
Yeah, I understand that, but why wouldn't we do everything possible to minimize the cost to taxpayers? And I understand there's no definite that you'll get in. But we were told 3 to 5 years, we're only at 2 years. So, yeah, in my mind, you do this at least one more year. You apply at least for one more year. That's sort of what I think, but I know what other people think.
I agree.
Yeah.
Is there an opportunity to, I mean, have we looked at a sort of, as you pointed out, Julian, like a reno program where you're sort of rolling through 5 years of renovations in Dale?
Well, Newton did that.
Okay.
Newton they had a study done of the whole city. And they had like a program for 20 schools over like a 20-year period where they're actually keeping some schools. They're not demolishing schools, and they're using them as swing space.
Okay.
So they finish at one school, 5 years later, they do another school, and they use that swing space, and they just keep going.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a brilliant idea.
It's kind of a good building management.
I'm just, the reason I brought it up is we kind of feel, I think everyone sort of feels boxed in a little bit, like we're sort of hemmed in by the box the town, everyone's painted ourselves into. And so to the extent that there are things we can unstick, whether it's grade configuration or renovation or whatever, I think we should try to be proactively removing assumptions and reevaluating what we need to do. You know what I mean? And then maybe some of those things don't even need to go to a full vote for 67% because they're a reno program. And what does that look like?
What do you mean?
Like if you choose to say over 5 years, we're going to fix Dale 20% a year, that's not a big giant town proposal. It's just part of.
Oh yeah, there's always an option to do a quick, I mean, they looked at just a base repair of Dale at the last project was $38 million. Just to bring it up to code.
Right.
It's not giving it more space. The MSBA doesn't even participate in that. They make you calculate it, but they won't participate in that because they don't view that as a good strategy.
Right, but theoretically, you could do a rolling 5 year, $7 million a year to fix the thing up. And so
Where are you gonna get to 7 million?
So you keep spending $7 million every.
I'm just saying, like, it would be nice to
gonna
Do an
come from?
override every year for some.
I don't know. I'm just trying to frame out options. I'm not proposing anything. I'm just
Yeah.
boarding ideas here.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think.
Yeah.
What do you think? You all?
Yeah, I think it's been presented. I think that's good and let's
Okay.
leave it at that. And I
Okay.
think that,
All right.
you and Peter work together and, any comments on that would come out at the school building committee and all these are different options. This is just giving facts and process of where we are at the moment.
Yeah. Yes, Chris. Yeah.
Just sort of factual clarification. I spent a lot of time researching MSBA, doing the record requests from them, researching other projects, talking to other districts. Just quick clarifications.
With MSBA, if you do a renovation, they do not hold you to that 900 square foot classroom size. They give you flexibility with the renovation to do something, to go smaller. You have to review it, you have to pass it by them, but they don't hold you to the 900 square foot, and that's in the regulations. So that's some cost savings right there. MSBA right now, from all indications, is they are putting a lot of pressure on towns, school districts to consolidate. But the consolidation by a lot of different educational standards is creating schools that are very big and are too big for educational soundness. There's the sort of rule of thumb is for an elementary school, you don't want to have a school that's any bigger than 500 students. And so you get into a position where if you say, okay, I'm going to go through the MSBA program and we're going to do our elementary school, and they put pressure on you as a district to say, well, we want you to consolidate your grades. We don't
This
care
is
that.
for the School building committee, this isn't for us.
No, this isn't.
It's not. for us.
Well, all right, well,
It's not.
no, go ahead, finish.
So,
Go ahead,
so you
finish.
look at Hopkinton as an example, Elmwood Elementary School right now. But Hopkinton, their elementary schools have been one of the top rated in the state by so many indications. Their model is very similar to ours, where they have 2 grades. MSBA put pressure on them to do a 3-grade school. That school now is going to be built for over 1,000 students for 3 grades. The cost of that school is $158 million, $158.4 million. So the question is,
Let me stop you there, because I think the Hopkinton situation, as I understand it, was one, they made them do that because the enrollment was through the roof.
right,
So they didn't, they were making plans and they were already out of room, so.
no, this is a different scenario. The reason I'm bringing this up is because if MSBA has been doing this, I don't know whether you saw the information that I sent you. What MSBA has been doing now, they did it in Burlington too. If MSBA were to come to Medfield and say, we will admit you to the program if you consolidate your grades for a 3-grade school. We don't care if you get to 800 students in that building, but we want to see grade consolidation. Then all of a sudden they're imposing their belief that they want us to spend all that extra money on the school, and they put us again between a rock and a hard place. Do we say, yes, okay, we'll be admitted to the program if we go with 3 grades, but it goes against our sort of local philosophy about how big a school we really want to have for our kids.
Well, I mean, it comes down to enrollment, right? I mean, the Burlington one you just cited is 325 enrollment up in the screen, was 91,000 square feet. That doesn't sound like a big school to
No,
me.
but Burlington put their own, stake in the sand and said, this goes against our own values. We don't want to be that big. You are forcing us to be that big.
Okay, but obviously they didn't win. Burlington won.
Right, but I guess the question is if MSBA comes to us and says, we're gonna put pressure on you to reconfigure your grades for 3 grades, and it's gonna be a $900 student school.
Why would they do that if they didn't do it last time?
They did do it last time. In essence, they did.
All right. All right.
All I'm saying is that.
Mr. Chairman, this isn't our issue here. It's not our issue. You want to take this up with the school building committee? That's fine, but that's not the purpose of our presentation.
I understand.
Well, then if you
Yeah,
understand.
yeah, I mean, if you, I would encourage you to go to the school building committee and make those points. We are, just looking at the question of cost here, in this presentation. And
This ends up factoring into the cost.
right, and so far I've heard that, you use the word pressure. I'm sure they ask questions and ask them to explore different options. But they, I think my understanding of the process is that it's locally voted, the preferred option. And that's what goes for approval to the MSBA. So I'm not sure what you mean by pressure. So the Burlington situation was voted and approved locally and went to the MSBA, and that's what's moving forward. So, I mean, anyway, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.